Hey there, welcome to the Deliver on Your Business podcast, where you are the boss. I'm Ron from EntreCourier.com. Entree is from entrepreneur, for somebody who is in business for themselves. And here's the deal, folks. If you're an independent contractor, you are operating a business, ready or not. So that makes you an Entree Courier. Welcome to the club. This podcast is here to help you think like a business owner and to thrive in your business. So let's get started, shall we? Well, hello, Courier Nation. It is another new week, and that brings me to the question, are you signed up yet for our Courier Nation motivation email? Every Monday, we send out our weekly email to give you a little bit of a boost to try and start your week, and with recaps about what we've talked about in the past week. You can sign up for that at deliveronyourbusiness.com. We are on the last of 6 episodes on the finance side of your courier business. Today's topic, though, it's something that kind of spans probably a lot of different sections because we're going to talk about knowing when to say when. We just have 9 days left now in the Courier MBA series, and we reference back today to a lot of different episodes where we look at a lot of previous episodes, and I'll try to keep up with the show notes as far as links to all of the episodes that we do refer back to, and we'll also have a link to our schedule episode, and that has links to each of the different ones. You can also go to deliveronyourbusiness.com for our podcast page or to entrecourier.com for our website. And you can get earlier episodes as well by going to any of the main podcast sites like iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, because sometimes you get a little more power out of it if you go back to the beginning and listen to some of our earlier episodes, because sometimes they tend to build on each other. So today we are on episode 22, talking about knowing when to say when. When is it time to move on? You know, one of the hardest decisions you can make as a business owner in any kind of business is, when is it time to quit being that business owner? And that's even true as an independent contractor for Grubhub and Postmates, Uber Eats, Caviar Shipped, Instacart, DoorDash, any of those. Folks, I'm a big fan of this whole delivery gig, and I guess you have to be to write a blog and do a podcast about it all, right? But I also know that there's times when it's just time, you know? But how do you know when? And what I want to do is talk about a few things that can be kind of clues for when it's time to start thinking about doing something else. Courier Nation, I think that maybe the most important factor that you have to consider as far as knowing when it's time to hang up is when it doesn't meet your why anymore. It really boils down to that one thing. Now, this is the last of the money section, but ultimately the decision isn't as much of a money decision. I think your main thing that you want to think about is something that, it is and it isn't, but when it's all said and done, it comes down to your why. Is this continuing to help you accomplish your why? If it's not, can it? Is it reasonable to think that it might? If it's not, it's time to think about doing something else. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I really encourage you to go back to episode 3 because we talk about that. We talk about discovering your why. We talk about understanding why you are doing this to begin with. And it's more than just the money. It's digging deeper. It's like, if I'm doing this to earn money, why am I earning the money? What is it that I'm trying to support? What is it that I'm trying to accomplish with that money? And you just keep going deeper and deeper into why you're doing this. It is that why that gives you motivation. It's that why that keeps you moving sometimes. And it is also something that I think you always have to go back to is this continuing to help you accomplish that why? And if it isn't meeting your why, or if there's something else that better helps you meet your why, then it's time to start thinking about, what do I do next? You also need to think about when what we're making just isn't enough. You know, for most of us, money is a big part of that why that we just talked about. And so we do this so that we have what we need, whether it's to take care of our family or to do something extra, save for a vacation, create freedom by paying down debts. And that's why I included this in the finance section of the series, because in a lot of cases, it does come down to the money. And there comes a time when you've got to ask yourself, is it bringing in what you need? And this is where you really have to get real. You've got to get really honest. You've got to ask, what are you really making? And we just got done talking about this the last couple of episodes. If you've been following along in the series here, there are a couple of episodes that really help evaluate this question. Early on in our business planning portion of this 31-day Courier MBA series, on episode 6, we talked about setting goals and understanding that what your earning power is really only maybe about half to 2/3 of what you would be bringing in when you're comparing it to a traditional jobs. What I mean is, if you're making $18 an hour, your earning power is about the same as a $12 job. Once you figure in taxes, your expenses, the other benefits that you would have with a regular job. So this is information that you can use, and then you can go to episode 17 of our podcast to look at some discussions on what are you really earning. Go to episode 18 where we talk about what is your car really costing you. Take a look at all of these different things and add it up and get real about what you're really making here, and just ask yourself, is it enough? Because folks, sometimes the hard truth of the matter is, I would imagine there are some of you that are probably making less than minimum wage and not even realizing it. You're putting so many miles on your car, and those miles will catch up with you, and you will pay for them eventually, even if it's not coming out of your pocket immediately. And so even though it looks like you're making pretty decent money, when you get real about your expenses, sometimes it's not as much as you think. So you've got to really dig deep. You've got to take a look at what you're really earning. You've got to be continually taking a look at that. And then you just have to ask yourself, is that enough? And if it's not, then what do you do with that? You then need to look at, can it be enough? If it's not enough right now, is it possible for it to be enough? And the other question you've got to ask is, do you enjoy doing this enough to really want to make it be enough? Do you know what I mean there? This whole series is built around having a foundation and finding ways to improve what you're making. And I really encourage you, like I said at the beginning, go back to the beginning, because we go through a lot of different things. We talk about a lot of different things, especially in episodes 8 through 16, where we talk about the operations, about a lot of the strategies that you can use to try and increase your profitability. Today, this is the 22nd of 31 articles and episodes, but we've gone through all of these different things where the idea is finding ways to make tweaks to help you make improvements. Now, on some of these things, I get a little bit of pushback. People say, like, I can't afford to reject orders because in my market, that's going to cost me the ability to set a schedule. And that's really important, especially like with Grubhub and DoorDash nowadays, and especially in some markets. Some would say, I'm just afraid of being deactivated. It's not busy enough in my market to reject orders or to be as picky about some of the things you can do. And honestly, folks, only you can know whether or not those things are actually legitimate concerns or whether they're excuses, because sometimes they are excuses. Now, I know some different markets, they're maybe not as busy as others, and so you might not have as many options, but I get some of that. But then the question becomes, this goes back to that, what I was just asking earlier, is it enough? And is accepting every order, is doing everything the way these companies want you to do it, is that paying you enough? And if there are conditions in your market that say it's just not sustainable, it's just not possible to do some of the things that we suggest, then you've really got to consider, is it worth doing this? Because in a lot of cases, when you have to drive as many miles as you've got to drive because of the way they dispatch you, you're doing volunteer work. And does that make sense? And is it time to really see if there is something else? Or is it time to see if there is something else that you can do? Is there a way to improve? The other thing that you want to think about is it getting better? If it's not enough, is it getting better? And Some of that comes back to whether or not you're tracking. Are you paying attention to what you're doing? In episode 8, we talked about measuring your performance and tracking that on a regular basis and seeing your progress. So track how you're doing. Are there improvements? Is it getting better? If it's not getting better, what do you see that says, yes, it can get better? You want to really pay attention to that. What can or what will change to make things better for you? And again, we're going back to being realistic here. If there's not a track record of improvement, that might just be time to move on. Here's another one to think about. And sometimes you would think it's obvious, but, sometimes I think when we're entrenched into something, it's not. But do you still enjoy doing this? Here's the fact, folks. Life is too short to be miserable at what you're doing. And I tell you what, I look at some of the social media forums and man, there are some miserable people there. I don't know if it's about doing this or maybe it's just the fact that they're going to be miserable at anything. I don't know. But the bottom line is, if you dread getting in your car, if you dread taking the food to the restaurants, that's another sign that maybe it is time to start looking at moving on. Another one, and this would, I think, be the ideal, is when you get to a point where something else is better at meeting your why than doing this delivery work. I really invite you to go back to episode 7 because we discussed building an exit strategy. Ultimately, if you're growing, you're improving, the time is going to come when you're going to outgrow this. I think it's a very definite ceiling in what we do. And there's always going to be a ceiling when you're trading your time for money. And this is very true here and really in most things in the gig economy. And so at some point, you're probably going to get to a point where what this can do for you may not keep up with what you need and with where you're growing. So you really want to think about that exit strategy. You want to start thinking about what could be next for me. And if this is giving you a taste of the entrepreneur life, you might be looking into what kind of things can I do on my own that I even have more control over than I do in the gig economy, right? So go back to that particular episode on episode 7. Think about your why also. Use your time as you're driving to start preparing yourself for those opportunities. And at some point, the door will open up for something that even better helps you accomplish whatever it is you're wanting to accomplish by doing this delivery work. And when that something better comes along, you go for it. Folks, it is okay to say when. It is okay to say it's time to move on. It's not saying that there was anything wrong with doing this. Sometimes you gave it a try and you realize that the business model where you're at just isn't sustainable. And that happens in business. Sometimes you found something better to move on. The beauty of doing this over a lot of other business options is you can leave it behind. You didn't have to put a lot of investment into it. You don't have to worry about clearing out inventory or what to do with your customer list. You don't have to worry about business debt. Really about the only thing left hanging over on you is going to be if you still owe on taxes or if you've kind of worn your car out to a point that you've got to do something with that. But that is a heck of a lot better than some of the bankruptcy situations that face people in some business situations. It's kind of like this is a beautiful way to get into running a business because it's easy to get in and it's easy to get out. And that's good both ways. I think the important thing here is just be very, very realistic about your earnings. Pay careful attention to what you're earning and what your potential is. There's a point where the money is going to say, it's time to move on. There's a point where your why will say, it's time. So be aware of those things. Keep your eyes open and be realistic. If you're not sure, if you're thinking that the time may be coming, just ask, are you ready? Go back, like I said, to episode 7. Think about an exit plan. Start planning. Start getting ready. Start preparing to be able to move on to something even better. And it's okay when the time comes to move on. It's a great gig while we've got it. And at least in my experience, it really has been. But I think the time's going to come when even greater things come along. So be ready to take those greater things when it happens. It's okay, but just always kind of keep an eye out for When is it time to find something better, to find something that serves you better, to find something that helps you accomplish your why even better? That kind of wraps it up for today, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Let me know any kind of thoughts or ideas, comments, feedback, or questions. I invite you to go to our contact page on deliveronyourbusiness.com, and from there you can email me or you can leave a voicemail from there. Folks, I want to ask a favor of you. I only want to ask this if you feel like I've earned the right to ask it. I try to earn the right by providing useful information, but just to ask you, is the stuff that I'm providing helpful to you? Is there anything in the podcast or in the website that makes a difference, that makes things work a little better for you? If so, could you spread the news, please? If you know other drivers, other delivery couriers that are independent contractors, can you let them know about it so that we can help them out as well? If you can share us on social media, if you can leave reviews at iTunes or Stitcher, those reviews help us get found, because the more people that know about us, the more that we can help to become successful in operating their delivery business. Folks, one last thing that I ask you, please go out, take control of your life, your career, your business as an independent contractor, and go and be the boss.